Good afternoon. I'm John Thwaites and I'm the Master of Ceremonies this afternoon. And I would like to commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where we are here today, the people of the Kulin Nation, and paying my respects to their elders, both past and present. And also acknowledging, of course, that Indigenous people lived here for many tens of thousands of years, caring for country and without carbon emissions, substantial carbon emissions. So there's a real lesson there for us. But today we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to hear from Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus and his vision for a world of zero poverty, zero unemployment and zero carbon emissions. This afternoon's event is organised by the Monash Sustainable Development Institute, which I chair, and which aims to find solutions to some of the world's really big sustainable development challenges: inequality, climate change, looking after our environment, and to do that through research, through education, and through actively engaging with the community. So we're very honoured today to have the Vice-Chancellor of Monash University, Professor Margaret Gardner, also the Provost, Professor Mark Pellange, and many other people from Monash faculties. And you'll be hearing shortly from Professor Yunus, who of course is famous for his work on microcredit and for founding the Grameen Bank. And I should say that Monash Sustainable Development Institute is very proud and thrilled to be partnering with Grameen Australia in some initiatives. And we'll also be hearing from Peter Hunt from Grameen Australia. A lot of the work that we at Monash Sustainable Development Institute do is aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. And those goals are sort of a to-do list for a better world, to meet those big challenges that I talked about before: eliminating poverty, tackling climate change. And the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, give us a vision of where we need to get to. They also give it targets of the sort of things we should be achieving. But what they don't do is give us a plan of implementation, how we're actually going to get there. And that's where I think social enterprises become so important, because they are a way to meet these global goals. And that's what we're going to hear a lot about today, about social enterprise, about how we can use entrepreneurial spirit for good and for social benefit. And to start, we're going to hear from our director of the Monash Sustainable Development Institute, Professor Rebekah Brown, who's doing a marvellous job across research and education and engaging with the community, but also particularly in this area of promoting young entrepreneurs in social business. Rebekah.
Thanks, John, and what a wonderful opportunity this evening is. At Monash Sustainable Development Institute, we really use those goals, those global sustainable development goals that really drive our operating agenda. We work across research, education and enterprise and lead a range of outreach and student-focused projects. And we are committed to social inclusion and impact at our core. And one of those projects has really been inspired by Professor Muhammad Yunus's work, and it's called Leave No One Behind. And it's a competition for our students across a range of the humanities and social science disciplines to develop a social business targeted at addressing a systemic social disadvantage issue in our community. And it's been really terrific, and I'm so pleased to see so many of our students here this evening. It's an exciting one for all of us. Professor Yunus, you launched our program last year in April at the Australasian Social Business Forum with our partner, Peter Hunt. We're so proud to be partnering with Grameen Australia on this program, and in Peter Hunt in particular. Grameen have been enormously supportive and have really provided a lot of mentoring, not just to our students, but to us as academics as well in this space. I'd also like to acknowledge the deans of our humanities, arts and social science faculties, and for your partnership and support in making Leave No One Behind the success it's been so far. And for Dr. Lara Werbeloff's project management and excellent leadership of this project. The project is really underpinned by the belief that students trained in the humanities, arts and social sciences have an ability to use their critical thinking skills to think through systemic issues of inequality. And actually all our students are pitching their final business plans on Thursday night. And I'd like to also say that it's really been the passion of our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Margaret Gardner, that provides a platform for all of us at Monash, her passion for social inclusion and addressing complex social challenges. It's her leadership in equity and social inclusion that makes us all so proud and really gives us the mandate at Monash Sustainable Development Institute to do what we do. Please welcome our President and Vice-Chancellor of Monash University, Professor Margaret Gardner.
Thank you very much, Rebekah. Let me also begin by acknowledging that we meet here on the lands of the people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present, and also to any other elders who are here with us in the room. It is just wonderful to be here this evening among this truly distinguished and excited and committed gathering, and to have the wonderful honour of hearing from Professor Yunus. It really is a great honour that he's given his time to come and speak to us here this evening. I'd like to thank everybody who's contributed, and Rebekah has already mentioned the deans of the faculties who've really stood behind this initiative, but I'd particularly like to thank Professor Rebekah Brown and Professor John Thwaites, who between them through the Monash Sustainable Development Institute have been constantly thinking about how we can make an impact, not just through our research and education, but in the way we communicate through our research and education to actually achieve the goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, and they have been passionate and committed to that. Monash was founded for the benefit of the community. When it was started, people probably thought of that community in a rather more limited way than we do today. We have 4 big goals. Of course, we wish to be excellent, and of course, we believe we should be truly international, and that's why I say when people thought of community at the beginning, they thought rather smaller than Monash embraced so quickly as it grew. But the Leave No One Behind program, which Rebekah has talked about, is a remarkable way of speaking to 2 of the other things that are very important to Monash, the 2 other core goals. And that is to be enterprising, that is to look at ways to innovate, to make that excellence and that international reach real for as many people as possible, but to do so with the 4th goal, most importantly, to be inclusive. And that is to recognise people, irrespective of where they come from, with all the respect that they are entitled to, and to recognise that inclusion comes not by just that recognition, but by building a community, and that's what inclusion is about. And so we think Leave No One Behind is a singular demonstration of, in particular, those 2 goals, to be both enterprising but to be fundamentally inclusive. And we feel that it equips our students with invaluable skills for the future, for the way they will shape the world before them. It's the spirit of inclusion and enterprise that Monash is privileged to recognise, so wonderfully expressed in our guest this evening, the economist, Nobel Prize laureate and author, Professor Muhammad Yunus. I don't need to tell people that Professor Yunus is an internationally recognised champion of making change for people for the better. For more than 4 decades, he's pioneered initiatives to end global poverty and the related problems that either partially feed global poverty or are the product of it, and they are social exclusion, gender discrimination, and the very extreme inequality that unfortunately we see growing around us in the world. In doing so, he's been recognised by Fortune magazine as one of the 12 greatest entrepreneurs of our time, and it's worth recognising that it's that entrepreneurial spirit about how we might make that impact and that difference that's so important. The Indian academic Sabari Mitra once commented, "There's no harm in attaching importance to the Nobel Prize, provided it doesn't overshadow an individual's other achievements." And that's why we shouldn't just talk about Professor Yunus in terms of his Nobel Prize, because it's his achievements that we are recognising. He's been actively involved in poverty reduction since 1974, as he so eloquently writes himself, when witnessing the impact of the Bangladesh famine, and he established the Rural Economics Program. He's best known for helping to lift people out of poverty worldwide by pioneering Microcredit, which really was just a brilliant initiative and a new idea and way to change that cycle of poverty. Supporting income-generating activities by lending small amounts to the poor without requiring collateral, which is a complete change in the way people understood banking and finance. When this was started with Professor Yunus making small loans to villages, it grew into the Grameen Bank in 1983, and today the Grameen Bank now has close to 8 million borrowers, 97% of whom are women, and it's lent over 8.26 billion with a near 100% repayment rate. There are lots of other financiers who would like to see a repayment rate of quite that significance. The Grameen Trust has extended the Grameen Microcredit system all over the world, and the first Australian branch of the Grameen program launched in regional New South Wales last year. And of course, it is our partner, Monash's partner in this Leave No One Behind program. Professor Yunus has done much more than the Grameen Bank, though that alone is such a significant achievement and something that gives and gives to people into the future. But he's established many other social companies in Bangladesh to cause the abatement of poverty, to aid development, and they're in a whole range of areas from mobile phones to energy, education and healthcare. Professor Yunus's work has been so significant in the world that he's won a number of other citations, including Bangladesh's highest national honour, the Independence Day Award, the Raymond Magsaye Award, I hope I've said that correctly, for community leadership, and the Sydney Peace Prize. And in 2009, President Barack Obama decorated him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the United States. Professor Yunus has kept on this track of championing the role of social businesses, non-loss, non-dividend companies with a social objective, as what he sees as the missing link in capitalism. And he will be able to talk about this more eloquently than I am. His book, which is around us, The World of Three Zeros, which is being launched today, looks at 3 pernicious and unintended after effects of capitalism as we have come to know it, and which we see operating in this way in many parts of the world. And that is, in fact, not just gross income inequality, but widening inequality, which is not so just corrosive of people's health and future lives, but of the very fabric of the societies in which we live. High and entrenched unemployment, which is not just its economic effects, but the way it deprives people of abilities to contribute, to be part of communities and to derive meaning, of course, of the way we tend to tie employment to meaning, and profoundly environmental destruction. So those 3 zeros that he is talking about are very significant to life as we know it, and the fact that we would wish to know life in a way that is better than that. His book outlines the case for a new economic system that recognises altruism, generosity as fundamental driving forces, that they are as important as self-interest in creating positive change. And I think there's enough now psychological and sociological work to say that it isn't only backing self-interest every time that will make the difference. I won't talk more about the wonderful insights in his book because he's going to talk about those, but a world that has zero poverty, zero unemployment and zero net carbon emissions would be a much better world. And it's a vision that I'm sure we each share, and we would like to think that both through our education and research, Monash is helping in a small way to realise. Monash is also, beyond its education and research, a relatively large organisation in terms of the number of people it employs and the footprint it occupies. And in recognition that we have impacts as an organisation, not just as a university, last year we announced that we would aim for net zero carbon emissions by 2030, and so that, and in a substantive way, that we would do so at Monash by ensuring that all energy used on our Australian campuses will be from clean and renewable sources by 2030. And we're investing more than $135 million over the next 13 years to achieve just that aim. It's a small footprint, but it's another type of commitment. Another vital theme in Professor Yunus's work, and I will stop, but that aligns with our mission, because in the end, it's how those ideas make a difference and how those ideas come through the education, through our students. He writes, the current generation of young people is in a unique position to succeed in the quest for meaning once they feel relieved from the search for a basic livelihood. They are a generation that was born with amazing technologies in their hands. This has made them potentially the most powerful generation in human history, and there are some of them out there in the room this evening. I think his comment is profound. I notice that the students that are coming to us now have a deep and abiding interest in making a significant difference, and I believe that Professor Yunus's belief in the importance of altruism and what we can do to make a difference is sustaining for all of us. And it's on this topic of what this new economic system will look like that Professor Yunus will be speaking this evening. Please join me in welcoming incredibly warmly to the stage Professor Muhammad Yunus.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your introduction. And I'm very delighted to get back to Monash again. It's a very short period, and I came back again. I see a lot of overlap in the thinking of what goes on in my work and the thinking in the policymakers in Monash. So I feel very excited to be here and meet the faculty and the students, and I'm very happy to get this opportunity today. Thank you very much for inviting me. You have already mentioned about my work on microcredit and all, and that led me to many questions from my side and many questions from outside. From outside, people were always asking, can it sustain itself, the program that we run? And I was always insisting, yes, it can, because has its own built-in mechanism to sustain itself. But they were not mentioning the financial sustainability. They were saying, can you really lend money to people without collateral? Because it's impossible to think, coming from the old thinking of entire banking system based on collateral, all the legal ties that you have to tie up so that people cannot sneak away from you. And here we are saying, no, we will build a system which doesn't depend on any collateral at all. Because if you want to reach out to poor people, this will be the precondition because they don't have any collateral to begin with. And it's growing step by step. The more it grows, the more curious and kind of shocked the people who are watching us become. Because it's kind of defying everything that you have said before. And it's working. It's still not collapsing. They are waiting for every second for it to collapse. It became nationwide. It became global. Still, people holding their breath that maybe someday it will collapse. See how used to we get our own ideas? We don't want to get out of it. Even concrete things happen right in front of your eyes. You don't want to change your mind because you have been drilled into your mind that this is not right, this is not the way it should be done. I said in a banking system, collateral is like a gravity force that you have to have this to get into the relationship with the borrower. I said, what we have done, we have overcome the gravity force. We are free. We don't need that anymore. And to emphasize that, I draw attention of Grameen Bank. You already given the statistics of Grameen Bank. It's a big bank. Last year, it's lent out over $3 billion in 1 year. So it keeps growing. And the total savings of the borrowers put together exceeds $3 billion. So you come to another stage where I repeatedly mentioned to my colleagues that, look, you cannot call them borrowers anymore because they are actually lenders. They give you more money than you give them. So your relationship is changed. So once you overcome gravity power, lots of other things can happen. And I draw attention of the people saying that Grameen Bank is the only bank in the world which is lawyer-free. Because once you don't have collateral, you don't need any legal instruments, all those signatures, all those fine lines, fine prints, nothing. It's basically a handshake loan. It works. And not only works for hundreds of thousands of dollars, it works for billions of dollars. Now we work in the United States. We named it, we were challenged to do it actually, that they were convinced that it will not work in a rich country like the United States. Their lifestyle is so different. I said, look, lifestyle could be anything, but people need money, and the banking system doesn't provide the money. That's a problem created everywhere in the world. So no, that's everybody in the United States gets money if they want. Maybe they don't want it. I said, people want it. I said, well, it's a very simple thing. I asked, do you have loan sharks in your country? They said, yeah, we have loan sharks. Do you have payday lenders in your country? Yeah, we have payday lenders a lot. Do you have pawn shops in your country? Yeah, of course, every city is the biggest sign is a pawn shop. So you need microcredit very badly. So these are the signs that our financial system terribly failed. You are looking on the one end of the financial system. You're not looking at the other end of the financial system. You can literally draw a line in the middle of the entire population of the world, 4 billion people, have no access to financial services. I emphasize it by saying financial services is like economic oxygen. If we don't have oxygen in this room, we cannot breathe. We'll collapse. We cannot function. I said, when you cannot provide economic oxygen, people economically cannot breathe. They become dysfunctional, and we call them poor people because they cannot function. The moment you connect with the economic oxygen, people become alive, active, creative. That's a very simple truth. But after all these years, now it's 41 years of Grameen Bank. After all these years, have we made any impact in the financial system? No. Everybody appreciates it. People give Nobel Prize for it. But it didn't change. It didn't change anything. No big bank said it's open for everybody, open for business for everybody. It doesn't say that. Sometimes they say inclusive finance. That's words, not reality. The reality still remains the same. So these are the frustrations that we go through. In the US, we started it, they challenged it, we said, let's do it. So we set up our first branch in New York City, in Jackson Heights, Queens. We have no idea how it worked. We sent someone from Bangladesh, said, you go there, you open another branch, because he has opened many branches in Bangladesh. He's very good in setting up branches. He got very puzzled. He said, I don't know anything about the United States. How do I do it? I said, look, I'm not sending you because you're an expert on USA. We are sending you because you're an expert on Grameen Bank. So do exactly what you do in the villages of Bangladesh, in the heart of the New York City. And don't listen to anybody. That's the most important advice I can give you. There are always advisors all around you telling you, you cannot do that. No, this is America, this is not Bangladesh. This is not your village, this is New York City. Ignore them completely. And do exactly what you do. And precisely that he did. And it became a beautiful branch. Everybody was proud of it. Now other boroughs, they said, we need a branch here, we need a branch there. So we have 7 branches in New York City now. And other cities came forward pleading that our poor are worse than the poor in New York City. Why don't you help us? We made a rule. I said, okay, we'll do it. For us, it's no problem. We'll get another guy from Bangladesh to set up another branch. That's easy. But you provide the money. Each branch will cost you $6 million. With $6 million, we'll have over 4,000 borrowers and bring it to self-sustaining level. All the cost will be covered and surplus will be generated. That's our task, to make sure. And you can actually take the money back, because we can. But if you continue to do that, then you have to need the money to flow in. That's all. Now we have 20 branches in all over the United States. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Omaha, Nebraska, Charlotte, North Carolina, Boston, Miami, and so on. And with over 100,000 borrowers. Very, very low from the strata of the society in USA. Mostly immigrants who are looking for survival. Latinos mostly, Caribbean, Asian, and so on. So we have to have languages after languages. Sometimes you are speaking in Latino, sometimes you are speaking in Creole, whatever language they speak. With 100,000 borrowers, startup loan will be $1,500, and that's the beginning. And then you can move on. As you pay back, you get more. A total of $1 billion loan given. And in none of those 20 branches we had anywhere less than 99.5% repayment rate. No collateral, nothing. Again, same story. Very difficult, but it works. See, our minds are drilled into things which are not real. We are so reluctant to accept the reality. Now, many other cities line up that why don't you come here, do it another branch. I said, okay, same deal. You provide the money, we do the job. The question, most of these 100,000 borrowers that I said we have in the USA, most of them, 60% of them, are undocumented. They have no identity. Forget about collateral. And when Trump comes to power, these are the people picking up their things about to go, because they realize that this is time to go back because there's no document. But luckily, US doesn't function that way. Even president wishes doesn't become law or rule. Every city's mayor stood up behind all these women. So as long as I'm mayor, you're not going anywhere. You stay here. And that's why they're still there. Not a single one of them have been deported. The question is, always ask the same question, why poverty? Why people become poor? I try to answer it in one way, of economic oxygen. You put the economic oxygen, suddenly they become alive. And the system doesn't provide you that economic oxygen. So people become poor. I try to give a kind of image of that. I said, poor people are just like bonsai. You take the seed of the tallest tree in the forest and plant it in a flower pot to grow. It grows, but it grows only 2 feet, only 3 feet. It doesn't grow further than that. And you always wonder, what's wrong with this seed? Why doesn't it grow? Answer is very simple. It doesn't grow because we didn't give enough soil to grow. Said poor people are bonsai people. There's nothing wrong with their seed. Simply, society never gave them the space on which to grow. If we had provided that, they will be as tall as anybody else. They'll be as smart as anybody else. There's nothing wrong. So that kind of drove me into many, many directions. Seeing that it is a fault of the system. It's not about the people. Because in our classroom, we are teaching our students poverty, reasons of poverty. They don't have skill. Everybody will point out they don't have skill. They don't have initiative. They are lazy, and so on and so forth. You'll have all kinds of, they are culturally accustomed to the life they are. They are not ambitious to move up. Anything. You'll have a long list of reasons. You come close to them, they are very smart. And you first time realize only their creative power, their smartness kept them alive. Otherwise, they'll be long dead because of their tenacity, their creative power, and enterprise. They kept themselves alive. And about skill, this is a fight I had to go through when I was building Grameen Bank. They said, they don't have any skill, you have to give the skill training. I said, we don't give any skill training at all. They do it on their own. Why? I said, look, because they already have so much unused skill. Simply, you don't have the money to use the skill. I have to go on repeating this. I said, look, every woman in Bangladesh, just like any woman anywhere in the world, in the poor families, poor communities, it's an enormous skill of making handicrafts. They do it for home. They sew their clothes, they do the pots, they do this, they do it all the time. They do designs. When people say, what can I do with the money that banks this? I said, well, do you sew clothes for your children? I said, yes. How many dresses you make every year? Maybe 5, maybe 6. Why didn't you make 10? Why didn't you make 20? Oh, well, we don't have any money to do that. That's where we are. We came here to give you the money so that you can make 20, you can make 30, and sell them. And you start from there, their skill is just limitless. And in Bangladesh, we are given with another kind of a strange example. We produce in history, we are the makers of muslin, the fine clothes, textile. That's Bangladesh is the country which produced muslin. All those weavers who made muslin, their generations are still here. They still have the same generational skill. There are 4 million families in Bangladesh of weaving families. Beautiful skill. They can compete with any machine. But they are the poorest community in Bangladesh. I say, you tell me about a skill, this is the best skill in the world. But that didn't save them. They're the poorest community in the country. So, mismatch of thinking and doing things. Then I got involved with many issues besides finance, which was very important. It's very center of my work. I see the problem of healthcare in the families, poor families. If you are poor, you're poor in health. No escape. So one of my first work was to look at those health issues and try to find a way to solve it. So every time I look at a problem, I create a business to solve it. Because I'm trying to stay away from charity. I could have done it in a charity way. I could have a health clinic, charity health clinic for the poor people. They can come and do that. I said, no, that's not the path I want to take. Charity is a wonderful thing. It has saved so many people over the history. But I see there's a limitation in charity. Charity money goes out, does a wonderful work, but the money doesn't come back. You have one-time use of money in charity. You cannot escape from that. And because it's one-time use of your money, you're always running around raising money to run it for the next year, for the next month. And sometimes it happens, you spend more time in raising money than the time you actually do the work. That's a totally inefficient way of doing things. I said, I will not go in that way. I will try to make a business out of it. And I did that. And I created lots of such businesses. Because we don't have time, we will not illustrate them. And I feel good that I'm doing something which works. Some of these companies became nationwide, so big. And I didn't have to worry about it because the business runs by itself. Once you start it, it has the power to retain itself, grow by itself, and so on. If you create social business, we started calling them social business. I say you take the objective of charity, put a business engine behind it, and it becomes a social business. And money goes out, does the work, money comes back. You use it again, it comes back again. It's unlimited use of your same money. So keep on doing the same work, producing same results. I said, that's the best way to do that. Then I got into fight with the theoretician, economic theoretician. Oh, this is not a business. You call it a business. It's not a business. So why not? Because you have taken away the very principle, very basis of business, profit, personal profit. See, personal profit is the incentive in business. If you remove that, there is no business left. I said, that's your theory. I do a business where I don't want to take profit. I'm entitled to take back the investment that I have made, nothing more than that. After that, all the profit is plowed back into the business. I said, is there any law in Bangladesh that if you don't take profit from your company, you'll be put in jail? I said, I'm okay. Whether you call it business or not, that's your headache. I think it's a business because it fulfills all the conditions of business except for taking personal profit, that's all. And that's why I'm calling it, it's different business, it's social business. It's a different kind of business. And you tell me that business, the profit is the incentive in business, I disagree. I agree that it's a powerful incentive. That's how the whole world is running after it. Very powerful. But it is not the incentive. There are other incentives in life. They say, like what? So I have to come up with something. I said, well, for me, it's very simple. Making money is happiness. That's your incentive. Making money is a happiness. Making other people happy is a super happiness. So that's my incentive. I feel happy. You can't take it away from me. Well, then there'll be few people who will do that. I said, no. That every person will do that. Economic system was hiding that fact. It was not introduced in their theory that people can be happy by making other people happy. I'm only introducing that to everybody to figure that out. I said, economic system always told the very basis of the economic system is self-interest. Whole economic system is driven by self-interest. And as a result, we believed in it. As a result, we became selfish people because we are told that we do things because of our selfish interest, self-interest. So I said, this is a damaging thing the economic theory has done, converted us into selfish beings. As a result, we have created a twisted world which is left out. The vast majority of the people are left out from the system. And we blame them for that. They are not to be blamed. Blame is in the system. I said, real human beings are not all about selfishness. Real human being is selfish and selfless. All I'm saying, come close to the real people, interpret human being in your theory that human beings are selfish and selfless. Once you agreed to doing that, then you are required to create two kinds of business. A business based on selfishness, which we all have, and that's what's running the whole world right now, and a business based on selflessness, where you solve other people's problem without any intention of making personal profit. Just the reverse of the other one. First one. In selfish business, everything is for me. Excuse me, I'll have it. In selfish business, everything is for me. In selfless business, everything is for others, nothing for me. That's it. Once we admit that, world becomes a completely different place. Because of selfish business, damages that we have done, the Vice Chancellor had just mentioned about the environmental issues. We destroyed the environment. Because you're so busy making money, who cares? If the emission goes up and down, it doesn't matter. I'm making money. They still do. They didn't stop. Because they're so focused on making money. And the Vice Chancellor, Gardner, is trying to protect her campus from them so that at least this part will be clean. Normally, the rest of the world will be going in their way to make it totally unclean because we are driven by making money. So all this problem, and worst of the problem is the concentration of wealth. All the wealth of the world is concentrated in a few hands. almost generally you can say right now. I say right now because it's getting worse every day. 99% of the wealth of the world is owned by less than 1% of the population. You reverse it, 99% of the people of the planet gets only less than 1% of the wealth of the world, globally. You go nation after nation, you see the same thing. A little bit here, a little bit there. So whether you are in one country, another country, you have the same scenario. All the wealth of the world, all the wealth of the country is in one corner, in one place. The rest is empty. You may be a very rich country, but richness is that in one corner. 99% of people don't see it. The statistics that I was quoting from Oxfam, they tell it every year. 8 people in the world own more wealth than the bottom half of the entire population. Last year. This year, 2018, it will be worse. Because 10 years back, it used to be 362 people owning more wealth than the bottom 50%. So I said, this is a ticking time bomb. It can explode anytime. Because you have a system, you don't have a really system. We call it economic system. Do you need a system to put all the wealth in one place, everybody going without it? That's not a system. That's a mockery of a system. We talk about inequality. I said, no, that's not the right word. If I have 1, if you have 2, if somebody has 3, that's inequality. If I have only 1 and you have 1 billion, you don't call it inequality. When you compare a fly with an elephant, you don't call it inequality. But that's what it is, but we call it inequality as if, oh, I get a little more, little less. It's not little more, little less. Why? Because the system is done the wrong way. So until this is where the university comes in. I don't mean one particular university as education itself, because we're teaching the young people this is how the world is. And that's where our mindset comes, that we have to do this. And in the university, and the theory that we teach fits us, fits the whole world with the glasses with dollar signs. We don't see anything but the dollar. All I'm pleading in my work, saying, can we have a bifocal glasses? Dollar sign, yes, to the extent you want to take care of yourself. Rest of life is for everybody else. That's what we dedicate ourselves into. We have the creative power. We can create a completely different world if we only have the bifocal glasses. But that's not what we teach. And in the meantime, the system will collapse. It's a ticking time bomb. It says everything will fall apart because it's going to an extent where it cannot sustain itself. We are talking about sustainable development goals. The world itself is unsustainable. We're working very hard to make it sustainable development, achieve sustainable development goals. So no matter how much we work, it will be difficult to keep it sustained. We may achieve it for a while, but it will drop because the basic system is wrong. So that's what I was trying to draw attention to. And in the minute I said zero poverty, zero unemployment, zero net carbon emission, the book, and the Vice Chancellor, Margaret, has set up one example that within her territory, she will have the zero net carbon emission for that. Yes, that's a good example. We can do it in our own corner of the world. We can't change the whole world, but if one campus can be zero net carbon emission, we can have our one block of the city can be net carbon emission. And one part of that city could be zero poverty too. I cannot change the whole world overnight, but I definitely can in my village, I can make the village zero poverty village. Possible, but we don't look at it that way. In my village, I can make it zero unemployment village. It's possible. We have to change our mindset. We have to address things as if it belongs to me. It's not a problem, it belongs to somebody else. And I have to address that. So that's where university comes in, that's where young people come in. They have tremendous ability to do things. Are we guiding them to go to the right path? What is the right path? One right path that I try to tell the young people, I don't know whether it will be acceptable to everybody else. I tell the young people, don't look backwards. We have all done the wrong things. You look forward, what you want to build. Design your world in imagination. Imagination is costless, it doesn't cost you anything. But imagine. Imagination is a big power. Once you can imagine, it will happen. Just because you imagined it. If you don't imagine, it will not happen. Because it's not in your mind. I said, if you follow the old roads, you'll always end up at the old destination. Our old destination is not a good destination. Don't follow the old roads. Have your imagination, build your new world, and build the roads to get there. That's the task for the young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Yunus, for that inspiring address. We now have an opportunity to hear from Peter Hunt from Grameen Australia, who will just talk a little bit about what you're doing here in Australia. Peter.
Thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure to be here today and to see all of you here. And obviously a real pleasure to hear from Professor Yunus. I want to start by just thanking the university for getting behind this event and for also getting behind social business, because in the Monash Sustainable Development Institute, we have an organisation that's saying, yeah, we want to get involved. About 12 months ago at an event that we put together called the Australasian Social Business Forum, Professor Rebekah Brown, the head of the MSDI, announced with Professor Yunus that she was going to start, or the Institute was going to start, this Leave No One Behind program. And I have to say it's been a real pleasure working with you, working with Lara, working with John, and just seeing something that was just imagination become a real reality within the university. I want to just throw out this question to all of you, because I came to Australia when I was 14, and I feel very lucky to have come to Australia as a migrant when I did. But just think about this. We live in what is one of the wealthiest countries to have ever existed in human history. We have wealth but beyond the dreams of people just a few generations ago. We have an enormous educational system with a massive investment in that system. We have a government that sucks out of this wealth about 36% of GDP each year. And yet, despite all of that, and despite the fact that we have some of the best brains in the world in this country, we seem to be incapable as a society of solving a whole raft of entrenched social problems. When we take homelessness, between the 2011 census and the 2016 census, despite the economic growth, we've seen a massive increase in homelessness. Domestic violence is now the largest category of causes behind homelessness. Every month, on average, 7 women in Australia die because of domestic violence. We have increasing wealth inequality in this country, not as bad as the numbers that Professor Yunus was giving globally, but still pretty bad and getting worse. Housing is now becoming a dream of many Australians because it's becoming so expensive. Our incarceration rates increase, our suicide rates increase, and this is before we start talking about the gap between the Indigenous population in Australia and the rest of Australia. And these problems are before we even get into what's going to happen in the future with artificial intelligence and automation, and the impact that's going to have on jobs and on stress levels in our society. So what is it about Australia that, with all our wealth and know-how, we can't solve these problems? As I've thought about that, I've come to the conclusion it's this, that as human beings in Australia, we largely outsource solving these problems to two sectors. The first sector is the government sector. And hey, the problem with the government sector is, whilst it's full of some amazing people, if you describe the government sector as dynamic, we'd all laugh. Because the nature of government is to be process-led, supposedly policy-led, with politics intervening all over the place to create a whole range of implementation issues and these almost segmenting people according to specific problems rather than dealing with people as people. The other sector we've outsourced to is the not-for-profit sector, and I do a lot of work in the not-for-profit sector, and it is an amazing sector full of amazing people. But again, being dynamic is a problem if you're in the not-for-profit sector because you haven't got financial resources that you can rely upon. So each year you never know where your resources are going to come from, and that makes you actually quite tunnel-visioned and quite defensive. Now contrast that with a good business. The nature of a good business, and I'm an investment banker, so I'm sort of at the heart of this capitalist system which Professor Yunus has been talking about. The way a good business operates is it operates by being dynamic. Yeah, it might have a business plan, but it knows that actually the chances of that business plan actually occurring in accordance with that business plan is almost zero. Because along the way, you're going to have to adapt to changing circumstances, you're going to have to solve problems, you're going to have to learn from failure. It's a dynamic system. And that, in my mind, is the great secret of social business. That what we're doing is we're taking that dynamism from the business sector, that ability to solve problems, to get back on your feet once you've had a failure, to constantly adjust the way you do things, and we're applying that to the social environment. Yes, we want financially self-sustaining businesses, but the purpose of the business is not to maximise profits for investors. The purpose of the business is to solve entrenched social issues, bring the dynamism of the business sector and the empathy and compassion of the social sector together and actually start solving these problems. Now, I have to say, with social business, Australia is a bit behind many other countries around the world, and hopefully that's going to change in the foreseeable future. At Grameen Australia, we work in social business in the Philippines and Cambodia, where we work with incredibly poor people by our standards, who are amazing entrepreneurs. Everything Professor Yunus says about the poor, incredible entrepreneurs. And all we do is we provide them an enabling ability to realise that entrepreneurship and create wealth. So in Manila, we do microfinance and mentoring in the slum areas. We'll have about 200 centres across urban Manila by the end of this year. In Cambodia, we're using a chicken business as a means to actually not only employ scavengers from the local dump site, but to then have an outreach service to local rural people to train them to actually rear chickens, with us providing the market, so we can significantly increase their incomes. And that's something that's scalable throughout Cambodia in the future. Going forward in Australia, we're now focused on social problems in this country and really supporting and enabling the social business movement to really get to grips with the problems that we have in Australia and start solving problems rather than just talking about problems. One of the early projects is to see if we can make microfinance work in Australia in exactly the same way that Professor Yunus and his colleagues have made it work in the US, providing smaller loans to small people to enable their entrepreneurship to actually create reliable funding streams. I think social business is coming. There is a tipping point in Australia with social business. I don't know when it's going to be, but I can feel it coming towards us. But it will only happen if people like yourself firstly start to understand what social business is about, but then actually act. You know, I've often thought that, in these sort of gatherings, there are three categories of people. There's a person who basically comes and they feel confronted when they hear about people who are less advantaged than they are. So they're picky about the people who speak, and they find fault. Rather than seeing the big picture, they'll pick on something as a way of actually not doing anything. And they'll leave the room and get on with their lives. And frankly, there's probably nothing we can do about those sorts of people. There's a second class of group of people, and often they're the largest group in the room, and they have massive empathy. And they hear people like Professor Yunus talk, and they think, this is amazing. Yeah, we can actually change the world. And some of them have, tears in their eyes. But then they leave the room and do nothing. And I have to say to all of you, caring without action is worthless. It's the action part of caring which actually solves problems. Then there's a third group who not only have the empathy and the caring and recognise that, frankly, we're all connected, whether we're Australians or people from any other country, we're all intimately connected as human beings. That third group is the group that converts empathy to action. Now, only you as individuals know which of those three buckets that you fit into. What I would say to you is that if you're in the first bucket, just think before you criticise and look at the big picture. If you're in the second bucket, recognise that actually converting empathy to action is critical, because empathy by itself is meaningless. If you're in the third group, get out there and change the world. At Grameen Australia, we'd love to hear from you, whether as volunteers, whether as financial contributors, whether as people who just want to start social businesses. Together, we can change this world, we can change Australia, we can solve entrenched social problems. But it only happens if we as a group and as individuals start stepping up, standing up, saying, actually, government, you ain't going to solve these problems by yourselves. Not-for-profit sector, you ain't going to solve them either. Get behind social business, get us to the tipping point, and then, one day in the future, we're all going to look at what's happened, smile and think, actually, we live in a far better country. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Peter, and I'm looking out a room full of Category 3 people. They're all set to go. We do have an opportunity for a few questions now. So, Lara, is there a microphone that will go around? So I'll look for those who have a question. Just before we do that, if I could just ask one question, though, Professor Yunus. You've talked about selfish business and selfless business, and you've urged us to put our bifocal glasses on. Do you see a future where mainstream business changes its focus and its purpose? Or do you think that what you're talking about will only come from outside of mainstream business?
Already it's coming from mainstream business. We have lots of businesses which are global business but running social business. We have joint ventures with them, with some of them. Like we have joint venture with Uniqlo, Japan. We have joint ventures with Danone, which is again one of the global companies. We have joint ventures with Intel Corporation, joint ventures with McCain, and there are several others. So we're not talking about just NGOs, and these are serious business people. And some of those top business people kind of gathered together on their own to create a platform to create their own social businesses and exchange ideas and learn from each other. And it happened in Paris first time. And the initiation came from HSE, Business School in Paris. They invited them, they elaborated them. And business community with about 12 such big companies with Renault Nissan, Sodexo, and many others. They got together. They created several social businesses now within France. And that kind of gave incentive to India to create again, they call them action tank, social business action tank. In India, Tata is a leading company. It has more than 250 companies. Tata Steel, Tata Chemical, Tata, many, almost in every, Tata Motors. So some of them, and plus many others, join hands to create action tank, to create social business with their own initiatives and so on. And Brazil has just begun in that Action Tank with the leading company. So it's not isolated for the usual crowd of NGOs and things like that.
Great. Some questions. So there's some questions up the back. So we'll take one up the back and then one down here. We've got a microphone for up the back here.
Thanks, Professor Yunus. I'm Simon Angus from the Department of Economics at Monash, and heard and understood the change of mind. I like to think we're part of that and enjoy with our students exploring that together. The question I had was, government doesn't play a lot of role in your notion at the moment of social business. No doubt there's much to be said about empowering the social business movement and so on. There's been, as you know, a lot of talk about and experiments currently on the universal basic income. We know that people are more productive, have more opportunity for ideas and so on when their basic needs are met. And some of the experiences anecdotally in countries which are experimenting with universal basic income seem to suggest some people just become more creative, they think more about what they're going to do with their life, they look at what they can do and so on. Is there an opportunity here for the social business arm being supported and connecting with the kind of universal basic income arm, government and social enterprise? Is that something you would see as part of the solution, or do you see some concerns with that way of progressing?
I'm facing this issue repeatedly, your question, from another angle, not from the angle that you presented. This is coming from the Silicon Valley kind of situation, where the big issue, big talk is about artificial intelligence. And they're all in a celebration mood that artificial intelligence is coming very soon, it's on the way, already started. Soon your city, my city, somebody else's city will have autonomous cars, autonomous taxis, autonomous trucks running from one end of the country to the another country. And we are told through the press that X percentage of employment will be gone because of the artificial intelligence. So people who are already employed will become unemployed. And in a few years, it will be 50%. In a few years more, there'll be more. In other words, it will be moving in a direction where nobody will have employment left for us. In that context, the question came, then how do they sustain themselves, those who are losing jobs? We see there are people, young people who are not having jobs, unemployed young people in Europe, for example. Forget about the third world countries, they're filled with them. Even in the rich countries, Italy has 40% youth unemployment, Spain has 48% youth unemployment, and Greece probably 50% or more youth unemployment, and so on. So already there. And on top of what you are saying, our intelligence are coming, artificial intelligence coming to take away existing jobs. Where do they go? In that context, the new idea that's floated around, that the government should introduce universal basic income. And in the conversation, this question comes, how do I feel about it? I said, I feel terrible. I feel terrible even when I said this is a new form of welfare. All we are saying that we will be on welfare very soon because we won't have anything left to do with us. I said, in general, for welfare, I gave conditions. I said, welfare is a very important thing to come up with by the government to help people who are in distress. And government do come up to help people in distress. But I said, there's two parts of welfare. One part is to help them. Another part to create environment so that they can come out of it. That part no government does at all. Sometimes they talk about it, but never does it well. So welfare has become literally a trap that you go in, it's one way, there's no exit from that. So you're trapped into it, and it becomes a generational welfare. First generation, second generation, third generation, and it goes on. So I said, I don't want to see the future of human being being trapped into welfare. And then they also say, not only artificial intelligence will replace human being, artificial intelligence very soon will become as intelligent as a human being? That is another question. And once they cross that part, what become as intelligent as human being, they will become more intelligent than human being. And I said, are you talking about a path where super intelligent, artificial super intelligent will soon be looking at human being like cockroaches, because they don't have their intelligence so little and our intelligence so big. They will soon say, these are unnecessary things on this planet, get rid of them, clean it up, they mess it up. So I said, is this the direction we see for future? I don't see it for the future. I see it as something very remarkable future for human being, not the kind of submitting to our own creation to be removed from us. So I emphasize, to make it complete, I emphasize that technology development should not become a free-for-all thing. There should be some social guidance for technology development. And I think nothing better than that, United Nations should have a guideline of what direction technology can go and what direction technology cannot go. A simple guideline would be, no technology should be developed which is harmful to people. Second one, no technology should be developed which is harmful to the planet. Very simple one, but it's a very important guideline. Otherwise, you can make wild thing because somebody says, oh, I can make a lot of money by creating artificial intelligence. They don't need weekend. They don't need retirement. They don't need vacation. They don't need increment in their salaries or whatever. And I make lots of money by making artificial intelligence work for me, replacing human being. I said, the greed part should not be the one which will decide our fate. So that's my response to the universal basic income.
Thank you. Just down here, towards the front there, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yunus. I am Unni Krishnan. I work for Save the Children. I'm not an economist. I work with children and people mostly in disasters and conflict settings, including in Bangladesh. A tweet from you recently is one of the things which you often say, that the banks are created to serve the interests of the rich and not the poor. And these banks seems to be becoming more and more richer and more powerful and more influential. So my question is it possible to challenge them? Is it possible to change them? And most of the people in this room, if not all, we all have dealings with them. And that change and challenging, is it something which we should leave to the governments alone, or is it something which we can do ourselves as well? Thank you.
Well, it came from the same basic framework of economics that we are talking about, that all are driven by self-interest. So they are driven by self-interest. You can't blame them. They are doing it. To the extent when 2008 came, remember 2008? Collapse of the system. You saw all the policy making to protect economy and so on. All the governments are getting nervous of the 2008. And they came with a beautiful solution to give them money, more money. They already lost the money, billions of dollars. They are too big to fail. See, what a wonderful idea. They are too big to fail. I said, what about the poor people? Are you saying that they are too small to care? So this is the thing. One is too big to fail, so we have to pour in all the money to keep you alive. And for the poor people, it's too small to really pay attention to. So that's the way the system has been designed. You cannot change it by attacking only banking. You see all around are in the same principle, following the same principle. You can't escape. So in order to escape, you have to redesign. This is the point I keep raising. You have to redesign the system. And redesigning of the system is not a very fearful thing. Capitalist system prides itself on one big thing. They said, this gives people option. Everything you have option. People are free to choose. I said, yes, but when it comes to business, there is no option. You can do only one kind of business to make money. If you're not making money, you're finished. So I said, what I'm correcting it by providing another business, social business. So you have now choice, whether you want to do money-making business, whether you want to do social business. If you want to do social business, you can undo the banking system which we have by creating social business banking. Who says it cannot be done? That's what the Grameen Bank is. It's a social business banking. I didn't create to make myself rich. I created to solve the problem of the poor people. So if all of us started creating banks as a social business banks, then the problem is solved. So you don't have to go to them. You have your own bank, which everybody likes it. Everybody do business with it. People who are left out are included in it. It's a possibility. It's all about what we have in our head, what we want to do with ourselves. So as long as we want to make money, as long as we see dollar signs in our eyes, these are the institutions which will come up.
Well, thank you, Professor Yunus. Unfortunately, we have to finish now because Professor Yunus has another event to go to. But I'd like to thank you very sincerely on behalf of Monash and all of the people here. It has been inspiring. One thing that really comes through to me is that you've been prepared to take on those accepted truths. You know, people said that microfinance wouldn't survive, and it did. That you wouldn't be successful in America. You were. And I guess that makes us all question what we do and what we accept as our truths. And hopefully at Monash and through the Monash Sustainable Development Institute, we'll continue to challenge those accepted truths. So will you join me in thanking Professor Muhammad Yunus?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.